We can't discount the potential legitimacy of this being a foreign state actor, and a hostile state actor at that, who is looking to discredit the Ministry of Justice or the government in some shape or form. And one of those considerations has to bear in mind that more often than not, hostile state actors will use proxy cyber groups. We know that with Cozy Bear from Russia, where they used a small hacking group, and this can be for plausible deniability. And wrapped up in that discrediting operation could be some degree of criminality that is exercised by that proxy group, who will then blur the lines as to it being clearly attributable to a government agency or a hostile state actor being behind it. Well, there are two things which we immediately need to concern ourselves with. And firstly is what data is actually held on individuals and how much of that data could be utilized by criminals, either for identity theft or to utilize that data in some shape or form to profiteer. And the concern within the Ministry of Justice is how they're protecting data that is encrypted or should be encrypted at rest, which means that we can feel entrusting that if they are gathering this personal data on there, it will be secured in the most efficient and effective way. And the compromise of this data obviously draws a broader stroke concern about other government agencies that might be holding personal data and may be following the same types of security protocols that the Ministry of Justice seemed to have, or in particular didn't have, to protect it. The first thing that I would always generally do in these instances is I would look at what is the information that has been stolen. And I'd risk assess that data to how damaging is it to both the individual whose information has been compromised, but also to the depository, the company, the entity, the government agency that is holding that data. And this could bring out a very, very broad list of possible actors. And ultimately, it will be what is the end purpose, the end game for capturing this data? Is it to ransom it through some sort of ransomware? Is it to simply steal it and remove it? Could it be potentially an insider threat? And that is something that always has to be considered. It's not necessarily foreign cyber groups or small cyber groups that actively do this. The insider threat is just as much of a risk, if anything. And this could be a disgruntled member of staff or former member of staff, which is why it is astounding that somewhere like the Ministry of Justice wouldn't have periodic penetration testing, as we call it, which would simulate a black box attacker or black hat attacker, which is an external threat with minimal understanding of the network configuration. The white box, which is the person that has current access and is working within that organization and may want to sabotage their own organization. And the gray box, which is the individual who's recently left. This could have been someone who left under egregious or acrimonious reasons. They could have been sacked or fired for whatever reason, and literally they want to get their retribution or revenge on the company. Well, something that is incredibly concerning is this increase and this amplification and proliferation of attacks against everywhere from Marks and Spencer's through to Co-op. And that's not to mention the many, many organizations that won't have necessarily disclosed into the public domain that they have been targeted. And there is obviously obligations through the Information Commissioner's Office that if personal or private data has been compromised, they are obligated by law to disclose that this has happened, but hopefully with remedial steps and advice to those end users whose information has been compromised. But why this is happening right now is a big question mark. And it's again something which we have to look at in terms of the broad range of different targets. For each of these organizations, it can be quite different. But something that seems to be quite obvious right now is there is no commonality, which makes this even harder to detect in terms of who is behind this, and ultimately, is this a considered operation beyond standard criminality, or maybe a cyber group who is literally doing it for the amusement and fun?